All right, I want to read to you a few disturbing stories that show how the Trump admin is not doing immigration enforcement, but an exercise in state power. They are arbitrarily taking people away and removing their due process. We have conservative lawmakers arguing that people in the United States don't deserve due process, which is scary. And let's just jump in right here and then talk about the due process argument. This story says, Detroit mom takes wrong turn on the way to Costco, detained by ICE along with 2 U.S. citizen children. Sarahi said it, quote, felt like a kidnapping, locked in a windowless room for 6 days with her children ages 1 and 5, given 1 cup of ramen noodles to eat for the 3 of them, no diapers or clothes for her daughters, denied access to legal counsel, her children held in conditions deemed not acceptable for minors according to U.S. protocols. By the family's 5th day in detention, her daughter's fever was rising and her other child had developed a cough. Quote, I don't know where I am. They won't tell me. I only know I am under a bridge. It's a big bridge. It goes to Canada. On the 6th day, she was suddenly released with a June court date, but she's still worried about how many other people are being kept locked up under that bridge. And the main takeaway is that, well, a few things. Number one, that's a kidnapping. That is a straight up kidnapping. And the fact that she had no access to legal counsel, even if we put aside the ramen noodles and the cough and the lack of diapers, of course, it is inhumane. But the main thing is you're taking away somebody's right to due process. They need to know, when they're going to be released, what they're being charged with. And that's where we begin, because that's what soft authoritarianism looks like. A woman locked away without cause for an arbitrary reason. And we're seeing this pattern across the country. So Timothy Snyder said regarding the due process debate, if you accept that non-citizens have no right to due process, you are accepting that citizens have no right to due process. All the government has to do is claim that you are not a citizen, and without due process, you have no chance to prove the contrary. And that is the big headline. Whenever we're talking about that gay hairstylist with the tattoo who got deported to a prison, which is a terrifying, heartbreaking story, the scariest part is he never even had the chance to prove his case. That's why you need due process. That is the exact story that proves why due process is necessary, because if he would have had 20 minutes to just clarify what his tattoos meant, who he works for, what he does, why he came here, that he had a court date coming up in like 2 weeks, I believe it was April 14th, he had a court date coming up, then he would have been fine. But when you take away due process, nobody has the chance to prove that they're a citizen. And, this is an interesting Soviet joke. It says, a very old Soviet joke from an especially dark time. Foxes are fleeing the USSR in drove. Question, why are you running away? Fox, the Soviets passed a new law that they're going to arrest all camels. Question, but you're foxes, you're not camels. The fox says, yeah, but why don't you try proving to the NKVD that you're not a camel? And the NKVD was like a predecessor to the KGB. And of course, the entire joke is that when you have an authoritarian or totalitarian regime, they're quite arbitrary about how they will lock you away. They don't care if you're actually a citizen or not. They don't care about any sort of distinction. They just care about raw power. It's the same exact story that's happening here, just arbitrary, lawless kidnappings. And that's the pattern that I'm trying to point out across the country. You guys have seen the video of Ozturk, the woman who was in the hijab, and she's just walking to her class, and about 6 masked people come up and basically kidnap her. It was so incredibly bizarre to see on camera, and that's happening all over the country. We even had an Indiana congresswoman saying, quote, you violated the law. You don't get due process. I grew up in Indiana. I was born in Indiana, not making me proud. These are the same lawmakers who oppose red flag laws because they don't provide armed domestic abusers with due process. The audio on this clip is bad, but you'll be able to hear what she's saying.
You violated the rule. You are not entitled to due process.
For people that say they love the Constitution, they really don't seem to understand it or have any respect for it whatsoever. In the Fifth Amendment, it says, quote, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Now, when it's talking about due process, it doesn't say no citizen or no U.S. Citizen, it says no person. It says no person. So this applies to anybody who is on U.S. ground. In the 14th Amendment, it says, quote, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Again, you can't deprive any person, whether they're a citizen or not. There are also many precedents with the Supreme Court where they say that immigrants deserve due process even if they are here illegally. Yet despite that, we have a story from the Times of India reporting that hundreds of international students wake up to an email asking them to self-deport for campus activism. Again, this is a direct infringement on the First Amendment that will create a chilling effect. The Trump admin is trying to get other student activists and universities to bend the knee preemptively. So when they can target Columbia University, for example, then let's say Harvard sees that and Harvard preemptively bends the knee. It creates a chilling effect where people are scared to speak after they hear that hundreds of international students in the U.S. are getting an email from the U.S. State Department asking them to self-deport, owing to campus activism. I mean, so much for the freedom of assembly, the freedom to protest, the freedom to speak your mind and to dissent against the government. Immigration attorneys contacted by TOI affirmed this development and added a few Indian students may also be at the receiving end of such emails for something as innocuous as sharing a social media post. Literally, you can share social media. And what the Trump admin is doing, too, is they're revoking people's visas or green cards, which is really weird because it goes back to this joke from the Soviet era, right? When the admin can decide who is here legally and who is not, then they can justify anything. And listen to this when it comes to the denaturalization cases that are ramping up very, very quickly. On March 19th, Article 3 project founder and MAGA influencer Mike Davis told Axios, quote, what's going to be on the horizon are denaturalization cases. You're going to have Hamas supporters who have been naturalized within the last 10 years, and they are eligible to lose their status as citizens and get deported, he added. It's worth it. Here's the thing. They are classifying people who are just vaguely pro-Palestine as Hamas supporters. If there is somebody who truly thinks that Hamas should take over the Middle East and that Hamas is like a good group, then yes, I'll disown that person. I don't know if they should get deported, but yeah, I disagree with that person strongly. But most of these people just have a Palestinian flag in a social media post, and they're targeted just for having an opinion. The article reported that Trump's campaign to restrict immigration through the Supreme Court is being spearheaded by Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, and look what Stephen Miller tweeted about a year and a half back, after Jack Posobiec said, we used to strip foreign-born anarchists and communists of citizenship and deport them. Law still on the books, just planting seeds. Stephen Miller responded to Jack Posobiec. That's exactly what we want. People in high positions of power responding to like low IQ grifters like Jack Posobiec. Stephen Miller responds, yes, we started a new denaturalization project under Trump. In 2025, it will be expected to turbocharge. So the United States government is openly talking about stripping citizenship from political dissenters. Everything that makes America great is being taken away right there, whether it comes to the freedom to dissent, whether it comes to the freedom to move here and then voice your opinion and then integrate. It's all such a mess. And I think it's worth pointing out that this is the foundation of authoritarianism. Sometimes when you throw out the word authoritarianism, people picture prison camps and show trials and people being locked away at gunpoint. It's not even that. You just need a credible threat that if you say the wrong thing, if you attend the wrong political rally, or you make the wrong post, that your life could be destroyed without recourse through the courts, through deportation, through being sued and just having your money sucked away. This has happened time and time again. So I just want to repeat, this is the foundation of authoritarianism. Don't just think that authoritarianism has to be the most extreme thing. Now, the first Trump admin attempted to bring 1,600 either civil or criminal denaturalization cases, though it fell far short, with one estimate putting the number of cases brought at 168. So they actually were able to bring 168. So 10% of the cases they wanted to bring, many of those didn't even go through. The second Trump admin is attempting to revive those efforts, in part by including the section of the U.S. Code that controls revoking citizenship in one of the administration's day one executive orders. And then this reads, in recent years, conservative pundits and think tanks have sought to drastically increase those numbers. MAGA media figures have targeted pro-Palestinian organizers, a high-profile journalist, and in at least one instance, a sitting member of Congress in their campaigns to denaturalize citizens. I believe that's Ilhan Omar, who they have targeted openly, saying we need to deport her. Which are frequently directed at people who are Muslim or perceived to be Muslim, who are vaguely brown. You know, my dad is Muslim. His whole side of the family, they are Muslim. And, you know, he's pro-Palestine. He's attended these protests before. And sometimes we argue about it. We have healthy disagreements. And I largely agree with him. But the threats being posed to just normal people like my dad, who probably just posts random pro-Palestine memes or graphics or whatever to make sure he's spreading the word, these are extreme threats, even by right-wing media standards, and where MAGA punditry often falls light on specifics, white papers from conservative think tanks look to offer a veneer of policy respectability to the cause for ramping up denaturalization. So they can't get policy drafted or passed on shit like healthcare, like anything of importance, but when it comes to denaturalizing people for being pro-Palestine, they somehow are actually drafting policy related to this. And you know, the entire point of this video is that we need to stop the kidnappings. I could go through and play all of the videos of people being kidnapped, but I don't think that would help. I've played them multiple times on this show, and at this point, we just need to be talking about the policy, the statistics, how we can push back narrative-wise. And you know, I think if you want to screenshot this page right here, sharing graphics or posts like the one on screen will be good. If you tag me in it on social media, I'll see it, I'll drop a like on it. But I mean, stories like this are solid to share because this should not be happening. There should be due process. This is not immigration enforcement. This is an exercise of state power. As I said at the beginning, I'll leave it at that. Drop a like, subscribe. I love all of you, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.